And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fifth and final segment, which is going to be talking about the Nationals and Rays and the decisions they face ahead of the trade deadline. So let's get into it. All right, so with the Nationals and the Rays, both these teams are in very interesting spots heading into the trade deadline, and I do want to talk about it. So, as I talked about before, Ken Rosenthal did drop an article today, meant just adding a lot of stuff in his notebook and just talking about a lot of different things involving the deadline and involving certain teams. And the Nationals and Rays were together and were involved in this, so I did want to talk about it, and I thought he brought up a lot of interesting points. So, I want to first start off with the Tampa Bay Rays and just talk about them. So, he said in his article, rival executives are already circling the Tampa Bay Rays, thinking they can buy low on struggling hitters such as Randy Arozarena, Yandy Diaz, and Brandon Lau. All of them are expensive and have only combined for 0.5 WAR ahead of this year so far with them. And with the Rays underperforming this year, I do think this makes a lot of sense. I think that all three of these players could potentially see their way out of Tampa, but also I'm not sure. I think that overall it's going to be very interesting to see, and I did want to talk about it. So with the Rays, we know this about them. They don't spend money. And if these three players who are being paid a significant amount of money are all underperforming their contracts pretty significantly, I think it may encourage them to move on from them, because simply put, they are pretty cheap and they are a smaller market team who just cannot afford a lot of money. And I think Arozarena mainly is the big guy here. I think that he would be the crown jewel of a team's trade down if they were able to get him. Yes, he's struggling this year, but at the same time, he's Randy Arozarena. I mean, he has enough name power to be able to have a team strong to look into him. His track record speaks for itself, how good he's been, not only in the regular season, but in the playoffs. I mean, this is a guy who's very close to winning a World Series MVP and has a proven track record of that. And if you're a young team looking to add an outfielder, I think Arozarena would make a lot of sense. Now, there are a lot of teams I think overall make a lot of sense for him. I think the Royals come to mind as one. The Orioles, again, that might be hard because division team, but also the Phillies, Dodgers, Mariners, I think also make a lot of sense. And I think Arozarena is a great player and could potentially have a lot of interest for him at the trade deadline. But I'm just not sure if the Rays would want to do that. Yandy Diaz and Brandon Lau. I think Diaz would be more likely to go because he is older. I think a lot of teams make sense, including the Yankees. Again, that would be hard because it's in division, but I think they make sense. And then that, just any team needing a veteran DH or first base bat, which are a lot. So it's going to be very interesting to watch these Rays players ahead of the deadline. Zach Eflin is also a player I think makes a lot of sense to be able to trade if you are Tampa. A really good starting pitcher, only has a year and a half left on his deal, and has been amazing with them. The first year hasn't been as great this year, but I think teams still see the potential and stuff in him. We already know the Braves have registered interest in him, so that could potentially be a fit there. But yeah, overall, going to be very interesting to end up watching what does happen with this Rays team and the players, the decisions they do make on these players. Now, the one question I did want to ask here is, should the Rays buy or sell, in my opinion? If I'm the Rays this year, I'm selling. And I'm selling hard, to be perfectly honest with you. There's a lot of injuries with this team that are going to help them next year, but also I don't know how much they are going to affect the entirety of this team. Shane McClanahan is the big one. Of course, he is one of the best pitchers in baseball when he's healthy and should be back for the entirety of next year and is going to, of course, be a big help. Jeffrey Springs as well, another star starting pitcher for them, so that helps. But overall, I just think this year is not their year, and I think Zach Eflin could be a player that finds his way out and a player I would trade. I would not trade Arozarena, as I think you're just selling too low on his value. Same with Lau, but I would look to maybe potentially trade Yandy Diaz, even with his regression. I mean, he's getting older, so it might just be more of regression than unluckiness for him. So I think that's all something you have to ponder. But the Rays still have a lot of good people in this farm system. There's a lot of good young talent on this team. I just don't think this is their year, and I'd be looking to trade anyone on a 1-year contract or a 1 or 2 year contract. And I think that's the correct course of action for this Rays team right now. There's just a lot not going right for them, and a lot of things that I think are just fundamentally wrong with this team this year, because of injuries, because of underperformance, whatever it is. And yeah, that's definitely what I'd be looking at here, and very interested to see where they do go with this deadline, and very excited to watch. Again, now with the Nationals. The Nationals are in a very, very interesting situation, because who would have thought we'd be talking about them as potentially buying, I mean. This is a team that has not done well these past few years. We thought was also not going to do well this year, and still haven't done that great, but haven't been that horrible. And with the Braves struggling a little bit and potentially not looking like their year, I think that the Nationals could potentially look to buy. Rosenthal talks about it in the article as the Nationals are currently pondering what to do. They're only one game out of a wild card berth. Their playoff percentage isn't that high, but they're only one game out, and there's a lot of good young talent on this team that you might have to say, okay, you know what? We're not waiting until next year. This is our year. We're buying. And you could look to get a younger pitcher, a younger hitter, just someone like that. You could look to get a veteran kind of leader on this team. But there's a lot of good young pieces on this team that I think the Nationals could potentially talk themselves into buying. You, of course, have Josiah Gray, who is a really good young pitcher, Mackenzie Gore as well, Mitchell Parker, Jake Irvin as guys who have stepped up in this rotation. Of course, you have a lot of good younger position players, as in C.J. Abrams, James Wood, Robert Hassel, Dylan Cruz, who are all going to come up within this year and next, I'd say. And again, there's a lot of young talent on this Nationals team that is exciting to see, exciting to watch, and I'm very excited to end up seeing as they do develop for the course of their careers and over the course of this year and next year. And you look at the NL East this year, again, it might not be the Braves' year. The Mets are looking like a disaster right now. The Marlins are horrible. And if you're the Nationals, do you take advantage of that? Do you say, okay, you know what? If we add someone at the deadline, whether it's a big piece or a smaller piece, we call up some of our prospects, we could finish second in this division, we could make the wild card. I think second may be a little out of reach, but I still think they have a good chance to make the wild card at this point. And I thought at the start of the year, if they put everything together, they would potentially be a good team, and they have simply just done that. I think there's a lot of great pieces on this team that are to like, and yeah, if I'm a Nationals fan, I'd be very, very excited, and I think that overall there's a lot to love on this team. So be very interesting to see if they buy or sell. Personally, I would do a hybrid. I would sell off guys on one-year deals like a Trevor Williams who has value, but also look to add people with control of areas that you need, like bullpen arms, like some starting pitching arms, maybe some overall depth in that lineup as well. Players that are veterans that have, a few years left on that contract, they are available if you do have the prospect capital to trade for them. So I'm very interested to watch this Nationals team, what decisions they do make, and yeah, just very excited to watch this young team progress over the future as a baseball fan. So that is it for our show today, guys. I want to thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and notification bell to not only get notified when I upload, but when all the other great content creators on this channel do. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. It's a beautiful day outside. Enjoy it. Listen to this podcast on Spotify, whatever services you listen to podcasts. If you want to, just listen to it in the background or something like that. We upload all 4 clips to YouTube as well, so if you want to check out that, go ahead. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. It's a beautiful day outside. Enjoy it. We'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see what baseball throws at us tomorrow. Thanks, guys, and bye. Mm-hmm. 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 Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to